Greetings again, beloved creators. We are continuing our discourse on Earth history. We hope you were able to follow yesterday's lesson. It is a hard one to comprehend for most Earth souls, because there are multiple energy streams happening simultaneously: evolution, devolution, and constancy at very high levels. Today we will actually get down to the historical events of your timeline. As we and the channel have mentioned many times previously, time is fluid and not set in stone as your rational minds would have you believe. Therefore, much of what we chronicle for you is subject to change. Although the physical events have Akashic imprints and will continue to exist on one of your past timelines, you as a species have the capabilities of changing your timelines to better suit your evolution. We will address that subject in greater depth at another time. We are not fond of issuing disclaimers in our communications because we want our words and ideas to stand simply as they are, without embellishment or compromise. However, it might be useful to point out that some of the ideas presented herein will echo what has been brought forth in your mythological and religious teachings, and some of it will likely contradict the writings and teachings you are already familiar with. We are not here to convert anyone to a particular way of thinking, or convince you of anything. We ask that you remain open to our viewpoint of creation, perhaps realizing that we have a broader perception than most entities that have visited your world. How's that for a modest disclaimer? There have been 4 major civilizations and a lot of minor ones on your planet since the grand experiment began unfolding here. 1 Pangaea, 2 Lemuria, 3 Atlantis, and for the present. In addition, there have been 2 major events in your solar system that dramatically impacted the history of your world. A. The destruction of Maldek, and B. The destruction of the surface of Mars. We are simplifying the story considerably, because there were numerous other events, some of which we will be going into in detail. These would include what your religious writings call the Luciferian Rebellion, which we refer to as the Orion Invasion, the infusion of the Alpha Draconians Reptilians, the reign of the Saurians, your biblical and pre-biblical times, and the quiet invasion of the Zeta Reticulans Grace. Keep in mind that these are only the major infusions. There were many others, including input from certain Andromedan sectors, various levels and dimensions of Pleiadian groups, Venusians, Arcturians, Antaurians, and others from Polaris, Alpha Centauri, and many other regions. Add to this the overseeing of your progress by the councils of Halcyone, the Great White Brotherhood, the Confederations of Light and their offshoots Ashtar, Solar Cross, etc., and the many interplanetary priesthoods Melchizedek, Metatron, Enoch, etc., and you have quite a bowl of porridge on the cosmic stove. Well, as you say, let's get on with it. Let's start with Pangaea. We briefly talked about this civilization yesterday in part 2, but let's put it into the historic timeline. The land of Pan was the pinnacle of success regarding the experimentation and interbreeding of various DNA strains. This was the paradise, or Garden of Eden, written about in your religious books. Most of the Earth was tropical jungle during the period from 200 million to 20 million years ago. You can see evidence of this by examining the geological formations, particularly in your desert areas. For example, the barren desert area known as the Petrified Forest in northeastern Arizona was once dense jungle. Many areas, including your favorite hot spot, Sedona, was underwater for much of that time. In other words, your world was bathed in water and dense vegetation in most areas. Even the polar regions were teeming with life. The humanoid form was seated on your planet approximately 100 million years ago, right in the middle of this jungle period. There were small groups of humanoids confined to relatively small areas of your world. These humanoids were seventh-density beings with wings and highly developed telepathic and psychic abilities. They lived in paradise. They were loving and cooperative and communicated with the exotic plant and animal life that abounded everywhere. They extracted their food directly from sunlight, and assimilated water through their pores. They had need of nothing but each other. This is a rough equivalent of what you call the Garden of Eden in your religious writings. The life forms during that time were varied and plentiful. About 60 million years ago, the dinosaurs were killed off when the comet Aran-Yatak made its 10,500-year cycle and came too close to Earth on this particular pass. The resulting cool down destroyed a large part of the vegetation, but the Earth, in her amazing regenerative ways, was able to bounce back, and another fertile period ensued. There were only a few 100,000 humanoid forms on Earth at that time, and most of them retreated underground, and with the help of various Pleiadian factions, created a subterranean world of great beauty and intricacy. This is where the legends of an inner Earth came from. We will talk about that at a later time. Most of the life forms of Pan were exotic and do not exist today. There are legends of a few of them, including the Pegasus and Centaur, no relation to Alpha Centaurians, and some of the creatures were descendants of the dinosaurs and early reptiles. The dragons got their folklore from two sources, Paea and the Draconian invasion. The early dragons were reptilian creatures that evolved along with the dinosaurs and were genetically manipulated by us and other jet groups. Later, the Draconians came to Earth with their own reptilian form and began interbreeding and creating exotic dragon forms. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. The fall of Paea was the original fall from grace as chronicled in your writings. This occurred when the sons of God, the seventh-density Pleiadians, incarnated into the humanoid forms evolving on Earth and forgot their divine connection. The humanoid forms, before the incarnation of the seventh-density Pleiadians, had a rudimentary consciousness somewhere between second and third density. Your evolutionary scientists see the change brought about by the Pleiadian incarnations as an unexplained mutation that marks the difference between apes and humans. The incarnated Pleiadian humans interbred with the various creatures, hence the half-horse half-man and many others. The fairy kingdom was one of the offshoots of this interbreeding. Seventh-density souls took on a humanoid form that had wings. When they interbred with the four-legged creatures, one of the results was the Pegasus, or winged horse. As the humanoid Pleiadian souls dropped in vibration, their wings became atrophied, along with their telepathic and other abilities. They became more and more like the creatures evolving on Earth, more animalistic in nature and less able to formulate higher intellectual reasoning abilities. All this continued until approximately 10 million years ago, when the end of the cosmic cycle occurred and the electromagnetic polarities shifted. At that time, great storms raged across the Earth. As a result of the changing amp frequencies, the flood wiped out most of the creatures residing on Earth. This is referred to in your religious writings as the Great Flood. At that time, most of the Earth became covered in water, with a few remnants of land and life remaining here and there.